Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of TCG Talk, back today with another video. And in today's video, we're going to have a fun one. I'm going to be doing a little bit of a wrap up on Arachne as a character, talk about some of the lore, the background of Arachne, where Arachne comes from, and then also talk about some other branches of lore that I think are both appropriate to the character, but also potentially appropriate to the upcoming set in the Hunted section, specifically talking about some of the new spoilers that have been shown for the new set, and hopefully try figuratively connect some dots and maybe get a good idea of what some of these cards could do and maybe where the lore is going to go. So hopefully that'll be fun for you. At the end also, I'll kind of give my take and some community takes on what the new agents could be like mechanically and how they work, and just have some fun with it. So if you're new to the channel, welcome. Thank you so much for stopping by. Hopefully you enjoy your stay. If you're a long-staying supporter, thank you so much as always. Feel free to check out the Discord down below, all that good stuff. This is going to be a really fun video. It's more podcasty, so grab a drink, grab a snack, hang out, and hopefully you can learn some stuff. I'm not going to read it word for word. I don't want to bore you with a bunch of pages, but I am going to try to give you some general synopsis of some of the lore. And there's even more than this. I'm just trying to put it in like one concise spot. So we'll get right into it. First off, this is legendarystories.net. I'll put their link in the description below. I've shouted them out a couple times. They have accumulated every bit of lore possible from the game. So if you want to read more about stuff, definitely go check this site out. You can even like control F. Like if you want to know every time Arachne's been like even remotely mentioned in the lore, you can search Arachne. It'll show you every article, every character thing that's came up. So it's really, really cool. So before we get into Arachne's, and I have that right here, before we get into Arachne's kind of origin story, I want to talk about a couple other individuals as well as just like some background that hopefully will start to make sense as we go through. So the first person I want to talk about is Dr. Cress Mortimer, otherwise known as the Fixer. So Dr. Mortimer is a scientist from an undisclosed institute in Metrix. He was cast out because of experience which seemed too extreme and now conducts experiments within the pits instead, hints of metric corporate influence in the pits. Nowadays, he's a lead psychologist and director of Southmaw, a hospital or asylum in the pits. And this whole thing goes over like kind of a little excerpt. Basically, in this story, he is experimenting on a cultist from the Raven that worship Raven. Raven is known as the Asir of Chaos, right? And there's certain groups within Wraith, specifically the Apocalyptica, that worship the Asir of Chaos, otherwise known as Raven. There's even a book, almost like a religious book called the Book of Raven. But the Apocalyptica are a mysterious cult found within the depths of the pits. Members of this group can be found throughout Wraith. They believe that the end times are coming. An event will awaken latent powers of Wraith and split the world asunder, throwing all into chaos and destroying humanity in the process. They believe they're helping to prepare humanity for the coming apocalypse by creating small amounts of chaos, there's chaos, that humans will face, thus train them for what is to come. Wars, disease outbreaks, man-made disasters. Many of the darkest events in Wraith's history can be attributed to this group, despite their influence and suffering they have caused. Little know about them. So another branch to that, which I won't even put in this video, is that this group has ties to the monastery, where if you remember the story about Chain is trying to basically use the power of the Asirs, or use the Asirs to turn on against themselves in Arethiel. I can't ever say that name, but basically trying to get the Asirs to turn on themselves so they will not come into Wraith and unleash like all their chaos and all the issues. So like there's that whole line of thought that is Chain a bad guy or a good guy, right? Is Chain a good guy and really trying to like stop all this terrible corruption coming into Wraith, and Solana is secretly like the religious culty bad guys? Or is Chain trying to use the power of the Asirs in order to do so? That's neither here nor there, but it all makes sense when this group has ties to the monastery has ties to trying to work with the Asirs, and the Asirs have ties to Chaos. Chaos has ties to what potentially Arachne could be. It all kind of comes full circle, like in this big circle. But regardless, this Dr. Cress Mortimer, the Fixer, is working on a cultist from the Raven, or cultist we can assume from Apocalyptica, saying, Raven, grant me the strength to endure your rewards for the glory of mankind. Mortimer says, you're truly sadistic, goes on a little ramble. and basically says like how his metrics cohorts were too rigid and weren't willing to really try a bunch of experiments, which is really important for the Arachne origin story. And goes on to talk about talks about Apocalyptica, saying the Apocalyptica responsible for blood rot pox. The metrics chemists were convinced it was natural, but this Apocalyptica group has ties for all of Wraith, more specifically within the monastery, and that their goal, again, like I just said, is to worship Raven, the Seer of Chaos, and they believe that suffering will help Wraith and eventually in the long goal. But that they messed up on the experimentations because the Apocalyptica group wants to create an alternative evolutionary path for humans, which led to million failures, one of them being blood rot pox. Goes through each of one of the disease. The biggest disease, and I think it's important because I'm going to talk about it later, is this doctor, and I'll get into it in a second. I'm going to give you the short version. Basically, conducted experiments on Arachne, otherwise known as patient 1413. Arachne escaped, but this doctor is so crazy in terms of wanting to get Arachne back because he considers Arachne like the perfect specimen. He even goes to talk about inertia as one of the things, but where my true passion lies in the afflictions of that and inertia, a poetic name. This substance is a novel of radioactive material where the dangers come into its play into exposure to living beings. It slowly saps the strength from energy in those close proximity to it. Basically, he wants to find a way to inflict inertia on people without getting inflicted on himself. So basically, this doctor, like a lot of the metric scientists, are trying to utilize these horrible things in order to basically use them as weapons, right? It's very insane. And the reason that's important is, and we'll talk about in a second, hopefully I remind myself, is how willing this doctor is to get Arachne back for that very reason. So we also have a couple little flavor text things. In Blood Rot Pox, it says, "We are the trumpeters of their return, that even the deaf can hear their footsteps drawing near." Book of Raven, there is capitalized. So does there mean a seer? Does there mean what Arachne? Because Arachne is always referred to as they. It could be something with that. Death Touch says, "Inoculate yourself with merciful madness that you may survive the horrors to come." Book of Raven. So we've had some Raven stuff. So all that to say, there's another lore article called the Iconoclast Trials. Basically, I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but in this is where Arachne is first mentioned. So Arachne is first mentioned as patient 1413. An incident happened in Shunswich railway station in the pits. Basically, a group of people had a run-in with an entities known as the dregs. The dregs, for anyone who's curious, is basically a product of toxic sludge and chemical runoff into the pits. Basically, a collapsed tunnel, a mine accident, and a failure of simple human error caused all types of dangerous chemicals to overflow into the pits, and anyone who came in contact with these chemicals became dregs, and they're the result of these accidents. Once human, they mutated beyond recognition, irreparably damaged and transformed into something that barely resembles their former self. So they basically become monsters, right? So they had a run-in with these dregs, and a sortie of said specimens emerged from the tunnels of the Skine and assaulted the shroom farmers who used the Shunswich line to supply distribution. The rail workers and farmers dispatched a baker's dozen of wretches before the rest fled back into the pit. So after all this was done, they basically found patient 1413 like clinging to this chain and eventually got them down. And then that patient 1413 was brought to Dr. Crest Mortimer. Okay, that's important because after careful observation, Dr. Crest deduced that 1413 was raised among the deviant tribes in the Docker Harlows of the Skine. Skine is not mentioned anywhere else other than this one article, so I don't have any other information on that, sadly. Their mannerisms were uncultivated, in fact, primitive. Basically, 1413's mannerisms were very primitive in terms of verbal and like how they communicated and how they acted, but mentally and physically, they're almost like superhuman. It says here, in terms of kinesthetic aptitude, 1413 was a paragon. Never had the doctor witnessed such agility, such harmony over movement. Thus, the doctor confined them to the highest security wing in the institution, petitioned by our Matrixian benefactors. So again, they're backed by metrics. For funding and certain specialist resources, seeing the same potential as I, they are most willing to oblige. So basically, the doctor started conducting experiments on 1413 or Arachne to try to by my account, doesn't explicitly say this, but it's just me deducing, to make Arachne like this superhuman weapon for metrics. Then it goes into how Arachne escaped, which you can read. That's not as important for this. Basically, Arachne escaped. What is important in their escape is that Arachne was basically saved by Uziri. So Arachne was like basically slicing and dicing his way out, and then Uziri pulled them up via like a rope and basically said, "Follow me. You seem really competent. I kind of like you. Welcome, spider," or whatever. And then Arachne pseudo became a part of the spider, right? And kind of talks about that, how patient 1413 has escaped even the most stringent security measures. So this is the doctor talking again. Again, I want to read this because this tells you how crazy the doctor is, and this will come into play later when it comes to contracts that are out on Arachne in the current day as they are an adult. Patient 1413 has escaped even our most stringent security measures. I do cannot consider this a failure. No, by all accounts, I consider it a resounding success. I am sure our benefactors will agree. For my part, I keenly await the reunion with my prodigal subject. Dr. Kress is talking about Arachne like they're almost like his son. They might resent the confinements, but do not all parents seek to protect their children. They might cringe from their discomforts. When they return, I expect they will peel open the shell of this mighty Clausier and pluck me like a tender mollusk from my bed. I can think of no more satisfying conclusion of my experiment, no greater testament to our work to justify all those failures, all those losses. Patient 1413 will be an exceptional success. So the doctor is literally saying here, if Arachne comes back and kills him in a sadistic way, it'll almost be like a success because it'll just be a culminating effort to making Arachne this crazy subject, right? Okay. All of that lead up to talk about Arachne, right? Arachne originally was patient 1413. The feral orphan is taken and tormented to the point of no return, having crawled out of the most wretched recess of the pits. No longer a lab rat to the iron iconoclast trials, subjected to the poisonous experiments of the mad scientist. No longer the puppet of Matrixian strings, serving the nest as Arachne and regarded through the pits as the huntsman. So the huntsman's a nickname that Arachne's been given. They care nothing for the petty squabbles, and basically talks about Arachne here, right? Death is Arachne's only concern, assassination their singular delight. So if we think about this from like a common sense perspective, the doctor took a being that was very primitive in nature and basically tuned it to be a weapon, but a weapon without true purpose. Uziri has kind of given Arachne that purpose, but not to an insane amount, right? So this also then goes to the spider's trap. This is a very long one. I highly suggest go look this up. Just control F this when you go into legendarystories.net. It even has a narrated video at the bottom if you just want to hear it be read out like narratively for 20 minutes. But basically, this is a meeting between Uziri and Arachne. Arachne took a contract to kill the Emperor of Volcor, and Uziri was like, how did you not think this was a trap? And basically, these people jump, or try to jump, Uziri and Arachne on top. It's one of Uziri's like old people that she used to be under her charge, but they kind of traded. They were traders. The person's name is Whitetail. I'm assuming Whitetail is just like a run-of-the-mill, like, you know, thug ganger that's trying to fulfill contracts and stuff. So Whitetail is jumping in on Uziri and Arachne to kill Arachne because there's a contract out on Arachne's head. Now, the reason I gave you all that background on the doctor is because you could see how intently the doctor cared about patient 1413, how much the doctor wanted patient 1413 back. We also know that the doctor is backed by the metrics, who have a crap ton of money, right? Like that is the civilization pinnacle within Wraith. At least metrics and Solana kind of are both like hand in hand. So you have a doctor who likely has an unlimited money resource for a highly secretive project with a subject that is deemed as like one of their most resounding successes. Would it not be unreasonable to think that the metrics are funding the contract to get Arachne back? That I think is like the most plausible direction. But basically, Whitetail jumps Arachne and Uziri with a band of assassins, and Uziri works with Riptide to kill a bunch of them, and then injures Whitetail as Whitetail escapes. And then basically they say like, all right, well, let's go find out all these people who are trying to kill us. So, or trying to kill Arachne. So this is where some of the new agent stuff comes in, which I think is really cool. It's very faint. It's not a direct comparison except for one, but it is really cool. So they go and they basically kill this guy named Melton Wick, who I think is a middleman trying to fulfill this contract out on Arachne. But basically Wick is like this pyromancer guy with a flamethrower, and they kill everyone in Wick's like group, and I think end up killing Wick as well. Some of the cool thing about this is if you control F trap, Arachne waits still as a trapdoor spider, right? Now this isn't a direct comparison, but one of the agents right here, Arachne trapdoor, really, really cool kind of callback here. And then if we look up, what's the other one? Black Widow. If you look up Widow, Widow is actually an agent in Uziri's pack. So during this whole battle with Wick, out of the corner of her eye, Uziri glimpses a flurry of violence, Arachne thinning the crowd. She wipes blood and cerebral fluid from her dirk while counting. On 3, her loyal killers burst through the entrance, punctual as expected. Widow leads the pack, which could end up being here, Black Widow. Scything through the air lanes, severing limbs, and then talks about Amber, Jape, Florence, and Silka, which is another one of her things. So all to say, some little like quick excerpts in Arachne's, maybe some of the agent cards. But Arachne basically goes through all this. The last thing I thought was really cool that I wanted to bring up is there's some discussion in the community, like with some really like heavy Arachne fans, of why like people think, and I think this could be completely plausible. I haven't heard it confirmed, but it's possible that Arachne is referred to as they because of like identification, which it could be 100% true. The other thing is Arachne could be they because no one knows who Arachne is. And then the third, more like intricate one, is that Arachne is they because some people have this really cool tin hat theory that Arachne has basically was raised in the sky around Apocalyptica, and then was through the experiments from the doctor and through the association with that cult, basically has been chosen by the Asir of Chaos, Raven, to like do its bidding in a way, or is just used as like a tool, right? And the way that could happen is all the mask, if we pull up the Arachne Huntsman art, which I can't pull up here really fast, I can maybe pull it up while I'm talking, but basically the Arachne Huntsman art, I'm going to do this on the fly because I don't want to redo this video. The Arachne Huntsman art, you can see that there is a lot of mask right in the top left corner. Now I'll just pull this up perfectly. Let's go. Professional YouTuber here, y'all. But in the Arachne Huntsman art, you see all these masks here. And some people think that Arachne is a singular person. Some people think that Arachne is like just a group of assassins, almost like the spider, but within Arachne. But as we can see with the origin story, at one point in time, Arachne was one person. What I think is cool, even though it's very intricate, is that Arachne has now been chosen by the Asir of Chaos, Raven, to do its bidding. And the power that has been given to Arachne because of that, combined with the experiments done by the doctor, is that every time Arachne switches a mask, it's almost like Arachne changes. Not as like an entity, like a physical being, but like the soul and the powers and the abilities and everything is changing when Arachne changes those masks. Because like if you notice, a lot of Arachne's art has all these different masks behind it. And I think that this could be a possibility with this. And one thing, it's very faint, and I don't know if I'm stretching a little bit here, and if I am, that's fine. I'll make this the background now. We'll keep that there. Is right here. So in this story, Wick is fighting, going through everything, looking around this crazy battle, and Wick spares a glance for his prize. So basically, during this battle, Arachne got captured at the very beginning, just momentarily. Basically got a net thrown on them, and they couldn't move. So Wick looks over at Arachne, who was under a net, just in time to see Arachne slit the net open. Wick levels his flamethrower at the escaping assassin, but a curious detail gives Wick pause. Arachne's ghoulish facade is gone, replaced by a gas mask. Now, Arachne could just have a gas mask and put it on, or Arachne could be changing their mask to fit the situation, right? Changing their, not just their appearance, but their being to get out of where they need to be. Then it also talks about Arachne trapdoor later on, right? So I think that this could maybe point to that third and more intricate theory where Arachne is referred to as they, maybe in the physical realm because no one knows who it is in the story, but more deeper, it's referred to as they because it's like Legion from, I don't know if anyone ever watched the old, not old, it's older, with Nicolas Cage, the old Marvel movie where he plays against the antagonist is called Legion, where it's like one of many, where it's basically like the devil with a bunch of souls inside of it. I feel like that's how Arachne is. Like it's like one entity, but a bunch of souls inside with all these different masks. Anyway, that's a huge long tangent. Hopefully that made sense. But this is some of the cool lore. There's even more. I tried to organize it best I could from like some of the people that were involved in Arachne's origin story, and then the people that, and then Arachne's start, and then kind of where it's at from here. So all that to be said, as I pull up these agents really fast, we have 6 agents, right? And we can blow this up just a little bit. I can't wait till we get actual full cards. So the first one is Black Widow, right? Then we have Arachne Redback, Arachne Tarantula, Arachne Funnelweb, Arachne Orb Weaver, and Arachne Trapdoor. As you can see, all these agents like have different physical makeups, which is insane, right? It's not like it's like the same Arachne with just a different costume. Like one is legitimately a spider, right? And one is like this like almost like demon looking thing. One is just like a ninja, and it almost looks like it has more feminine traits. I'm not gonna say female, but feminine traits. Whereas and obviously Black Widow, which is the interesting one. Black Widow is referred to as potentially an entirely different person in that lore article as Arachne themselves. Like they're both are in the same room together, right? So is Arachne more of a group of people, right? There's so many different ways that you could take this theory. But regardless, here are some of the things that people came up with, right? I won't beat that to a dead horse. Let me know in the comments down below what you think Arachne is. Do you think Arachne is one entity with a bunch of different masks that change their form and their soul almost like, right, when they transform? Do you think Arachne is a group of individuals, or do you think Arachne is just one person, kind of just how it is? Regardless, here's some of the theories we had from the community. One is that these agents are Evo equipment or type of like equipment pieces that have that come into the field in some sort of way or some sort of condition, and then they grant additional effects. People are thinking this mainly because if you really blow up these images, I'll try to do the best I can. And people are trying to make out what this says. This, I think, says chaos. Some people think this says phantom. Then some people are thinking that this says Evo. And then some people, either this says equipment or dagger, right? Like people are stretching. I do think that this says chaos, and I would not be surprised if this says phantom. So our phantom, phantom tells me they're not permanent. So that's what makes this theory hard. But it is a theory that people have. The second one is that agents are a tool for Arachne's new demi-hero. This is very important because if we pull up really fast as I'm talking, the other version of this when the hunter came out in the middle, right? We have this one. Some people, including myself, think that either A, this is just a new artwork for Arachne that's sick. B, it's a new agent that hasn't been shown, and maybe only 6 of the agents have been shown so far. Or C, this is Arachne's demi-hero, similar to Leviah. Maybe Arachne's getting a demi-hero. So because of that, some people think that the agents might be a thing for Arachne's demi-hero. The one that I think is really cool, although I think it'd be insanely overpowered and really hard to do from a deck list perspective, is agents are cyborged Arachnes that you can switch based off your matchup. Each will have a slightly different effect. So basically, these are almost like daggers in your sideboard that you're able to use in your hero slot, like, right, that all have slightly different effects in order to like go against the opponent and do something that makes the most sense into whatever opponent you're playing. Another one is Arachne's agents are like masks, and you can form into them over the course of the game from your deck. So they basically work like figments with Prism, but these are called phantoms. Whichever agent is active will grant certain effects similar to Chi or Dragon. So let's say one of the things I thought, and it kind of goes with the next one, I'll combine these two, is let's say you mark a target, and on the backside of each of these marvels, each of them has a certain mark you have to fulfill. if you fulfill a mark, when you fulfill a mark, you may search for this in your deck or something like that. Maybe that's what the last assassin is. And then you search for one of these phantoms. You can put it on the field. And then when you fulfill a mark, you awaken it, right? You awaken the phantom, and maybe it gives you an additional effect, or it's a permanent on the board. I think that could be really cool. And it would make a little bit more sense from just a mechanical perspective. Another one that someone thought was really cool was playing off the chaos theme. Agents are granted through role effects and you don't know which one you'll get. So the spider's all about cards, right? Like playing cards. Same thing with the pits in general, right? They talk about the different cards. If you got like a 2 of a kind, 3 of a kind, something like that, you could get certain agents. That would be really, really variants, and I don't know if that would be viable, but it's kind of a fun thing. And then the last thing that someone thought of was agents are in the deck, and when activated, they give buff to daggers due to the set focusing on dagger attacks. So maybe instead of these agents giving buffs to your hero or cards or anything like that, maybe they just change what certain daggers do because this set is so dagger focused. So all these are really cool ideas. I thought they'd be really cool to share. Hopefully most of this lore made sense to you. I wanted to go over the Doctor because the Doctor is kind of like the start of Arachne in terms of other than Arachne's origin story, because the Doctor has so much influence on everything involving Arachne. The group Apocalyptica, some of the stuff, and then we also talked about Arachne's origin story with the Icon O class trials. I don't know, I have so much trouble saying that. And then we talked about the dregs, talked about Arachne, and then Spider's Trap. So hopefully these make sense to you. I'll try to link stuff down below. If you want to, the easiest way to do it is just Control F. Instead of me giving you 20 different links, just Control F either Spider's Trap. Another thing you can Control F is Arachne, or search in the search bar section right here. You can search for Apocalyptica, search for the trials. It's really easy to find all this stuff. So hopefully it makes sense to you. But yeah, if you like this type of content, please let me know. This is more in depth than I normally go on this type of stuff, and it's my first time like deep diving lore. So if I did it poorly, let me know. Let me know how I can fix it, do it better. But yeah, thank you all so much. Hopefully you'll have a great rest of your day. If you like this type of content, please leave a like, comment, or subscribe. If not me, it's completely fine. Go to another creator, leave a like, comment, subscribe on their stuff. Let's get more people seeing this game, and I'll see y'all next time on TCG Talk. Thank y'all so much.